All right, good morning, y'all. Today we're going to take a look at how to go from a food web into an energy pyramid. So for this practice here, we're going to take these organisms and place them into our energy pyramid. And then we're going to show the 10% rule, starting with 55,000 kilojoules of energy, which is basically like saying 55,000 calories. And use the 10% rule to figure out how much energy each of these organisms will receive. So we're going to start with our producers. Remember, our producers are the base of every energy pyramid. They store 100% of our available energy. And we know that our producers are all autotrophs or plants. So corn, carrots, shrubs, and trees are all our producers. So we're going to put them into our energy pyramid here. Corn, carrots, shrubs, and trees. Another indicator that these are our producers is that the arrow points away from them, right? The energy stored in the tree is being consumed by the deer. So literally the calories held in the tree enter into the deer's tummy. Same thing with the shrub. Same thing with the carrots, right? We all eat carrots for energy, or at least we should because they're good for you. Okay, so these are the arrows. We're just following the arrows. Remember, arrows show the direction that energy travels. We've got a lot of arrows here. Okay, so those are all of our producers. They're producing 100% of the available energy for this food web and for our energy pyramid. Make sure that we're still okay there. Now we're going to take a look at our primary consumers. These are the organisms that rely directly on producers. And so this is where we just drew our arrows towards, right? The mouse is getting its energy from the corn. The rabbit gets its energy from the carrots and the shrubs. The grasshopper gets its energy from the shrubs. And the deer gets its energy from trees, shrubs, and carrots. So we'll list those organisms here. Mouse, rabbit, grasshopper, and deer. Okay. Our next trophic level are our secondary consumers. Okay, right here. So these secondary consumers receive their energy from these organisms. So we'll follow our primary consumer, follow these arrows to our secondary consumer. So the hawk is a secondary consumer. The snake is a secondary consumer, also consuming the rabbit. Our wolf is a secondary consumer. The frog is a secondary consumer. And here's our wolf again, okay? So we just drew those arrows pointing to the organisms that are all secondary consumers. Frog, wolf. So we're going to place them in the secondary consumer level, which remember is the third level of our energy pyramid. So snake. Oh, I missed the shrew. Look at that. Okay. Snake, shrew, frog, hawk, wolf. Okay. Shrew, because it gets its energy from the grasshopper. Oh, we missed one. There we go. Hawk, because it gets its energy from primary consumers. And finally, let's look at our tertiary consumers. In this energy pyramid, our tertiary consumers are going to be our apex predators. They are on top. Again, some models might continue to quaternary, but here we're just filling in tertiary. Our tertiary consumers, again, rely on energy from secondary consumers. So we're going to look for those blue lines. The shrew is a secondary consumer, and it gets eaten by the hawk. Okay. A shrew gets eaten by the wolf. The frog gets eaten by the hawk. A snake gets eaten by a hawk. So my secondary consumers are the hawk, yeah, and the wolf. Okay. So that's how you'll go. And you'll notice that, again, depending on what an organism eats, its position within an energy pyramid may change. Now let's take a look at our 10% rule. Remember, the 10% rule says that only 10% of the available energy is transferred up to the next trophic level. So we're starting with 55,000 calories, basically kilojoules. When we do the 10% rule, remember that every whole number has a decimal at the end. 10% has 1 0, so we move over 1 0. We go from 55,000 calories to 5,500 calories because we moved that over, right? So I have a decimal point here. As I go up, I move the decimal over and I have 550. My decimal point's at the end. As I move up, I move the decimal over and I'm at 55. So I've reduced by 10% each time. Okay, hopefully that helps with today's worksheet.